Compass and Clock. I'm your host, Mary Copeland. This infotainment podcast explores how to live your best life now and well into retirement. We'll discuss topics in financial planning, housing, and insurance. We'll talk wellness, relationships, and leisure activities. A full active life requires planning for your goals and preparing for the unexpected. I'll introduce you to a variety of guests, from knowledgeable experts to folks sharing stories of their life experiences and so much more, because life is big. All is intended to help guide you in planning for what you need now and at any age. Like and subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Today, my guest is Amber Hassenflug. Amber is a writer, podcaster, and digital marketer. She's the owner of Pacific Creative Studio, whose focus is helping small businesses utilize the power of internet marketing to grow their reach through creative ads and websites that convert. In addition to that, Amber is also the content coordinator for Squim Living Magazine, where she helps bring stories of local families to the community. Today, Amber and I are going to discuss AI technology, what it is and how it actually affects you. Amber, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Mary. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, you've been a guest before because you're very knowledgeable. So you and I are going to talk about AI. So why don't we start off with what is the definition of AI?
AI stands for artificial intelligence, and it's essentially just a learning software.
Okay. So can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like, what does learning software actually mean?
So learning software means it's paying attention. Okay, so it doesn't work until you give it input, right? And then it takes past experiences, past text, past content, and it regurgitates it. So it's taking stuff that's already out there and learning from it based on what you're telling it to do.
Okay. So you have to put into it, or somewhere people are putting information in for it to pull back out of.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Now, I've had conversations with you in the past about AI, and you've talked about, I believe it's Chat GPT, and I'm not quite sure what it is, but I know I've heard you mention it in conjunction with AI. So can you fill us in on that, please?
Sure. ChatGPT is actually probably one of the biggest AI technologies that's being talked about right now in the news, in software development, and all sorts of things. And all it really is it's actually almost like a version of Google, if I'm being honest, where you go to ChatGPT and you say, what's this thing? Or how can I do this? Or write me this piece of content. And then it searches out on the internet and brings back pieces, but gives you one cohesive thing rather than a list of places for you to go find the information yourself.
Okay. So it kind of trolls for it. Would that be the right word?
Trolling is one term for it. It crawls the internet like a spider. Okay. Yeah. It crawls the internet, it finds the information, and then it gives you one cohesive piece with what you're asking for, rather than, like I said, if you go to Google and you type in a question, it says, well, here's a list of stuff with all, that contains the information that you're asking for, right? Meanwhile, ChatGPT and similar softwares are going out there, crawling the internet, and then giving you one cohesive answer instead.
Okay, so let's look at it a different way. Why would I want to use ChatGPT? What would I actually use it for?
Honestly, if you're just looking for an answer really fast, rather than having to go out and research it yourself, ChatGPT is a great tool. I'm not going to say it's the end all be all, because obviously it still is imperfect, right? It's computer, it's robot. It doesn't really think for itself. What it's doing is it's taking the information out there and regurgitating it, right? So it's like a really good example is my husband and I, we play Dungeons and Dragons. He went to Chat GPT and he said, hey, make me a character sheet for a level 9 wizard. Okay. And then it gave him a character sheet. And he's like, well, put more emphasis on charisma. So then it changed all the stuff for him. And he said, well, give it a backstory. So then it wrote a story about it. Well, then it was maybe, using something that he didn't like. So then he just asked it to change it. So really it was giving him the stuff, but he still had to lead it. He still had to instruct it. And that's one of the things about AI is that, yeah, it can do all these great things, but it still needs people to power it.
Okay. So is chat, if I'm looking for something online,
Mhm.
I use Google as my browser. So, you want something and people say, oh, just Google it.
Mhm.
So is that the language now in artificial intelligence? Oh, just chat GPT. I mean, is chat GPT a browser that anybody can access, or do you pay for this, or how does that work?
It's an open source software, which means that there's a place you can go on the internet and access this piece of software through a browser and use it, just like Google. Google is a software on the internet that you access through their website.
Okay, good to know. So this conversation is about artificial intelligence. So
Mhm.
why don't we dive in a little bit to how artificial intelligence is being used in our everyday lives right now? Let's
Yeah.
do walk us through some examples.
Absolutely. A lot of people are thinking, this is like the birth of AI, it's the dawn of AI, but the reality is that it's not. It's actually been around for a while. And a great example is, hey, Alexa, set a timer for me, right? Alexa has to use its artificial intelligence to take your words, transcribe it into words that it understands, and then do the action that you asked it to do. Okay. Another really good example is your iPhone. You ever noticed how sometimes you pick it up and it recommends an app to open for you? Right? You pick it up and says, "Oh, you connected to Bluetooth. Are you looking to open Spotify or Apple Music?" That's artificial intelligence. It's learning based on the actions that you do to make the use of your phone more convenient for you. So that's artificial intelligence. It's learning. It's learning what you're doing, and it's just like ChatGPT. It's taking content that's already on the internet and making it cohesive for you.
So when I look at my phone
Mhm.
and I have a photo shoot scheduled for my husband,
Mhm.
um, I'll notice on my phone, like a reminder,
Mhm.
something will pop up on my home screen that'll say,
Mhm.
it's traffic is good today. It's
Yep.
a 27-minute drive to get to this
Yep.
location. So AI is doing that. It's seeing what's on our calendar on our phone and putting it, giving me that message then.
To a point, yes, that is part of, because it's learning, right? It's learning, hey, you have to physically go to this location, and
Mhm.
traffic says this. Like, it's pulling in information from the internet, but it's still, even still, it's not like it's not self-aware. Like, it still needs that input. You still had to say, I have an appointment at this address at this time.
Mhm.
So it's, but it is still artificial intelligence, yes. Just like if you have the right settings on your phone turned on, you can say, hey Siri, when I leave work today, remind me to get milk at the store.
And then
And
Siri will,
my Siri just woke up because I talked to it.
hello, Siri. So, you know what, when you talk about Siri though, that let's get serious because I will, is this artificial intelligence? I'm in my car driving and my phone is connected to my car. So it's an Apple device. And so my car happens to have a big screen and it has this program. And so I can just look at the
Mhm.
screen and hit the icon for a text message, right? And
Mhm.
I can tap that and, then I'll see that it has, let's say, your name there.
Mhm.
I just had been texting with you and I remembered I needed to tell you something. And I'll tap that
Mhm.
and I'll say something like, Amber, don't forget to set your alarm for tomorrow. We have an early podcast or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And so it's Siri that is transcribing what I'm saying and putting it into a text format, correct?
That's actually a talk to text piece of software.
Okay.
That's not actually AI. That's just a different form of software because it's not really learning. It's just well, it isn't. It isn't. It has a form of AI in it because if you use it enough, it starts to pick up on the little subtleties of how you use language, of how you say certain words. And so if you're going in and correcting it often enough, like I didn't say this, I said this, and it's a word that you say a lot. Like for example, my son's name is Sawyer, and so sometimes for the first few times when I'd say his name, it would spell it weird. It would do something different. And so then I would go in and correct it. Now, whenever I'm using talk to text and I say Sawyer, it hears me. It understands what I'm saying. So there's an element of AI, of learning technology to it, but the actual talk to text piece isn't necessarily AI. Does that make sense?
Yes, and thank you for clarifying that because I will read a message that I just talked and the typos in there. I mean, they've changed my words and then you read the message and
Yeah.
it's like playing that old telephone game, where somebody says something and by the time the fourth person it gets down to them, it is nothing what you
Totally
said
different.
before. And if you hit that text button before you proof what you're sending, which is you can't do while you're driving. Well, actually, when you're
It's true.
driving, you can just cancel it because she reads it back to you. And you're like,
Right.
that's so not what I just said.
It's
That
not
would
even
be
close.
embarrassing. That would be embarrassing if I sent that. So, okay.
Right,
Good
right.
to know.
So there's an element of learning to it. There's an element of AI where if you correct the stuff enough, it will remember, but it's not actually like in itself a learning software.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Mhm.
So, can you give us just a few more examples of AI in our everyday life?
Well, I mean, things like I'm trying to think because there's some things that are still driven, that are still pieces of software that are driven, right? Like it's AI is not like you visit a website and then you start seeing ads for that all the time. That's not AI. That's tracking cookies that are in your software. But like a really good example is Facebook.
Okay.
Okay, so when you're on Facebook, it's keeping track of what you like and what you don't like. It's making it very clear. Like it actually notices when you click on something to read it. It notices what you're commenting on. It notices what you're liking. So then, have you ever been scrolling through Facebook? And of course, you have ads that say sponsored. But have you ever seen one of those ones that says recommended for you?
Yes, like if I was on Google and I was looking for wool braided rugs, next
Mhm.
thing I know, I'm on Facebook and I'm posting a post for Compass and Clock, and there's ads for braided rugs. I'm like, what?
That's actually not the same thing, believe it or not. That is just tracking cookies,
Okay,
where it picks up those cookies because Alphabet, Google's parent company, works with Meta, which is Facebook's parent company, and so it'll say, "Hey, if this person has shown an interest in this product, or like the website that you maybe went to,
mhm,
okay, had a cookie in it." That was it's called a Facebook pixel, which is a tracking code. And
okay,
so Facebook will say, "Oh, you went to our website. I'm going to show you an ad." That's not quite the same thing. It's more like if I went, like I like to read a lot of articles that are like, "Oh, 20 tweets that we loved this week," or these people are having the worst week ever. Probably worse than yours. Like I like to read those articles. I'm terrible about it, but I will click on them 9 times out of 10 just because I'm like, ooh, content to read. Like I like to read what other people are writing, what other people are experiencing.
okay,
And so because I click on enough of those, now I'm seeing more of them in the recommended for you, not necessarily the sponsored ones, the ads, but rather, hey, we notice you like these. I want to show you more of this content so you'll stay on our website longer.
okay. So that's artificial intelligence. And
Yes, that piece of it is artificial intelligence.
can you give an example of artificial intelligence, like in an industry, whether it's in healthcare or you know, how artificial intelligence has a role maybe in jobs? Like, is artificial intelligence part of trying to use robots or technology to kind of do some of the healthcare in a hospital? Is that
Not so far, not that I'm really aware of,
okay?
just because again, it requires any AI requires input, right?
Okay.
And sometimes it's just basically, the basic tech word algorithm. I'm going to say the buzzword here, the algorithm, but it's mostly like, hey, based on all of these things, right? It's almost like a quiz, right? If this, then this. If this, then this.
Okay.
That's not really AI because it's a actual coded algorithm saying if they do this, then do this. If they do this, then do this. It's not actually like watching, for example, with ChatGPT or Jasper or those other like copywriting softwares, you can say, write me an article about the dangers of swimming after eating and write it in the style of Oprah. Okay, that uses AI because that's going out on the internet. It's taking out all this information and then it's writing it and it's learning based on all the content that Oprah has out there and like her style of writing, and it'll do that. Okay, that's AI. Meanwhile, saying, hey, I have this symptom and this symptom and this symptom, what could it be? Right? Like WebMD, that's not AI.
Right.
That's just saying, hey, all of these things include these symptoms. And these ones specifically have all of the ones that you listed.
That helps
It's
explain
they're
it
very
better.
different.
Thank you.
Yes.
So again, you're using the word chat GPT. So
Mhm.
how is chat GPT going to really change how we're using AI then?
ChatGPT has made AI more accessible. The
Okay.
thing is, ChatGPT is it's the open source software that people use for this AI revolution basically, and it's actually on its third rendition. It's been around for a while. It
Mhm.
just wasn't as well known and it wasn't as accessible as it is now. So
Right.
it's really, at the end of the day, it's still just a tool. Like it still needs human input, right? Just like self checkout, right? At the store, it still needs a human to run it. It
Mhm.
can't just do it itself.
Okay. So then how can you tell if a computer software program is
Mhm.
using artificial intelligence? Can you give us an example of
Yeah,
what is and what isn't
sure.
using AI?
Sure. Me opening a program and showing the things that I just used, that's not AI. That's saying, hey, this is your most recent document, right? Meanwhile, my computer telling me, hey, it's 9 a.m. Are you wanting to open your Chrome browser? Because that's what you normally do every day at 9 a.m. That's AI because it's watching my habits. It's watching what I'm doing and learning so it can give me suggestions based on my actions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Um, so AI has been around and it will just keep getting better.
Yeah.
So how can we see benefits using AI in our aging process, so to speak, whether, from a school age, elementary school upwards, or, somebody middle age, senior, et cetera. How can AI benefit our aging process?
Well, the biggest thing that I see right now, like the right now picture, is like, again, you open your phone and it gives you suggestions. So, like, for example, I may not have a Kindle on my homepage of my phone, right? But if I open Kindle every night around like 10 p.m. before I go to bed, it's going to suggest, hey, it's 10 p.m. Did you want to open Kindle?
Mhm.
So I don't have to go digging through my apps to find it. It suggests it for me and it just makes the process easier. In terms of moving forward, I imagine it will be very similar, right? Like, hey, every time you come to the store, you pick up eggs. Should we add this to your shopping list? Like it's really just it's a tool to make our lives easier. It's not self-aware, it's nothing like that. It's just a tool that learns based on what we're doing to make things more convenient for us.
Okay. I can use a tool that makes things a little more convenient and helps me to remember some things.
Right.
So if someone isn't tech savvy right now, no
Mhm.
matter their age, it's not an age thing, whether you're tech savvy or not.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. How can AI help improve their tech savviness, if that's even a word? Can you show us how this can help break down these walls and the barriers for others that, feel that they're tech challenged?
Sure. Again, it's just going to make softwares easier for us to use because it's going to notice how you're using them. It's going to notice what you're how you're using and what you use it for, and then start tailoring that experience to fit you based on your needs and your habits and the way that you use the software. The way that I use Google Chrome is very different than the way that you use Google Chrome. The way that I use Kindle, I buy a lot of business books, and it notices that, right? And still, that's not, I mean, Amazon isn't exactly AI, but it does have that capability of saying, hey, we notice you're buying a lot of business books.
Here's
Here's a popular one that's you haven't bought yet. And there's a level of AI to that because it's learning, right? It's paying attention to what you're doing. However, if I completely clear out, if I close that account and I start a new one and do the same thing, it's going to tell me the same thing, right? It's just watching what we're doing, but not in a way that's necessarily creepy. Like, it's not like, oh, this person looks like they're going to be doing something illegal. It's just like, hey, we noticed that you've been looking at this thing a lot. And some of that is just tracking codes, and some of it is AI where, it's constantly learning
patterns.
Yes, patterns.
So it's really not, it doesn't matter what your tech savviness is or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's really just there to make to honestly, it's there as a tool to make things easier to use.
Okay. So I feel like I'm more educated on artificial intelligence right now after this conversation. So thank you, Amber, for helping me understand it better and our listeners.
Sure. I mean, the thing is that AI is in the news and there's a lot of fear mongering around it right now, right? Like, oh, it's going to take jobs, it's going to do this. The reality is that that's not what it is. It's a tool, and it still needs human interaction and human input to work.
Thank you for that final statement. That was necessary, I would say, because there are people that are like scared of it, and they shouldn't be. So
there's a lot of movies about it, like The Matrix, like, oh, AI had this uprising. AI isn't self-aware. I mean, it can have some attitude, right? I'm not going to lie. That's one thing that ChatGPT did have recently, where people like, I'm getting this output and it's kind of angry. But then you look at all the stuff that was on the internet, and there's a lot of angry stuff out there. So of course it's going to regurgitate angry stuff. So it's not really self-aware.
it's just spitting back out what was already put in.
That's right. Yeah, it's like Dwight from The Office. Like, you have to be really specific with it, or it'll do its own thing, and it may not be the output that you want.
That's a good example.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Amber. It's always a pleasure to do a podcast with you. I always learn something after our podcasts are over. And to our listeners, thank you again. And until next week, take care and thanks for listening. Bye-bye.